the shield and health stats on the Warp Prism to give it a reusability factor. It could sustain damage and still be usable. And you guys went ahead and just alt-right buff the shields, which is terrific. And I was wondering if and how that's affected the use of the Warp Prism in the pro circuit.
We definitely tried to get feedback from the forums, and I guess this is one of those things where we listen to you guys' feedback and just buff the unit. And in this case specifically, we wanted to buff it because it was a unit that was almost never seen play, but we saw a lot of potential in it. So after we buffed it, we were seeing a lot of usage, especially on the pro streams, maybe not as much in tournaments, even though just last weekend or the week before, I saw one of the Protoss players use it against a Terran player, and it was very effective, I think. So yeah, I mean, like, we don't want to see a completely like new thing or whatever, but we just wanted to encourage just this use, and I think we're seeing a lot more usage of this unit, so we're pretty happy with the change that we made.
Thank you.
It is. Hello.
Welcome back.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I was wondering if you guys were concerned at all about having too many options. There's already a lot out there, and you seem to be adding a lot. And probably the majority of these people that play this game are in the lower leagues and don't really understand what's going on right now. And all these options, are you guys concerned about overwhelming other people?
Yes. Wait, all right. So yeah, totally. Obviously, it's always a concern for us that we just have too much in the game. We're looking to add stuff, too, for the more casual players. I think, you know, the changes we're proposing for the Thor would be a good example of this. I don't think that's a unit that's ever going to see play, you know, on the main screen, though it might, on occasion, come out. But it's something that requires right now Armory, and it requires, what's the other requirement on that one right now? The Fusion Core, thank you. It also requires the Fusion Core. So it's a very high-end unit, but it's a very easy unit to use. And we felt like the mothership was failing in this respect. It was something that was meant to be for the more casual player to own his buddies in that 4v4, and yet it was something that required a lot of clicks for him to use. It was something that was very vulnerable to enemy fire, ultimately for its cost. So we're trying to do stuff along these lines. But yeah, well, you bring up a fair enough point, right? Like, we could totally be in a position right now where we're adding stuff that's a little too complicated, a little too difficult. It might make it even harder, but at the same time, we want to try to add more strategy. So we're going to try to walk the line and see where it takes us.
I'm sure you'll do fine.
We'll
Thank
see.
you.
Hi guys, I had a quick question about Spawn Larva compared to Chrono Boost compared to Mules. I was wondering if you guys think Mules were inherently like imbalanced compared to Spawn Larva and Chrono Boost. Like, say when a Terran expands to the gold base and drops all their Mules at a gold base, do you think it's a little bit too powerful compared to Zerg and Protoss's options?
I guess using it on the gold is a little stronger than the normal, but because it comes in at a mid or late game situation, we don't think it's too problematic. But if it ever gets to the point that we do think that, or if the players think that and we look into it further, then we can always fix that pretty easily, I think. And I think the strength of the Mule is not that, but the ability to just save up your mana and use all the Mules at once, which, like, with Spawn Larva, you can't really do. And in terms of that, I don't think... I think it doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical per race, what they get. So Terrans do have it a little easier on that side, but on the flip side, Zerg actually has an easier time, say, like producing a bunch of units at once. You can build like 30 units a lot quicker with multiple hatcheries, Haki to 1 Haki, versus trying to build 3 different units out of 3 different building types of the Terran. So we do try to go for those asymmetric options.
Right, but we've heard that feedback, and I'll just take it again as something for us to sort of watch going forward.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Clutch with Major League Gaming here.
Woo!
StarCraft 2 has exploded as an esport. Thank you so much for creating such an amazing game.
Especially at MLG.
Now, with Heart of the Swarm coming out, are there any concerns about releasing an expansion to Wings of Liberty during a pro circuit season?
Well, again, our hope is that you guys will make the smart decision and decide when to move over, if you even want to move over. But that you guys will look at it and go, hey, the guy, you know, our pro players, whoever they are, have had a chance to practice and play, they're ready to go. We're going to try a tournament and see how it goes. Or, you know what, these guys aren't ready yet. We're all still enjoying Wings. We're going to hang on to Wings a little bit longer. We went through a little bit of a similar process, obviously, from StarCraft to Brood War, but esports was not what it is today at that time. So it is sort of forging new ground for us. Can we do this? How should we do it? What should you guys do? I have a lot of confidence in the community at the end of the day to make the right call. That's how to show it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we made a game that's esports friendly, but we didn't make esports. Y'all made esports, right? This was something the community put together and built for us all to enjoy. Seriously, applause to you guys. And so that's why I feel like you guys will make the right call as to when to make that move. But we'll definitely be putting out builds. We'll have a beta up, obviously. We'll be able to get your guys' feedback as to how you want to do it, when you want to do it, and then you guys will make the final call on a tournament-by-tournament basis when and if you want to make that change.
Thank you.
Hello, I just had a quick question. Will the Shredder's attack be nullified around your own workers? Will it be nullified around your allies' units? And will it be repairable?
Yes, it will be turned off by your own workers. Yes, it will be repairable. Yes, if your allies enter the radius, it will shut off. It needs to work entirely alone or with other Shredders. And what you couldn't see in that video, because it wasn't that obvious, is those fields also do not overlap damage. They're like Psystorm in the sense that if you're in a field, you're taking damage. If you're in two fields, you're still taking one set of damage. So you can stack them up, so they're harder to destroy and move through, but at no time do you, if you put 17 together, you do 17x damage. But you do have to use them alone, no matter what.
But it does attack both planes, so it's very powerful in all rounds.
Pretty mighty right now.
My question is about the use of the Shredder as a harassment unit. Because earlier today, a guy dropped the Shredder behind my mineral lines, and then all my workers are gone. I think it would be especially complicated like for people that are not very skilled, like myself, because you are not looking at the minimap all the time and you don't have the APM to move all your workers away. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I'm sorry. That's a rough first experience, I'll tell you what. Yes, totally concerned. We have some tools we can use to adjust that. Specifically, the deploy time is something we can adjust. We could also try adding some very distinctive sounds to it, so even players who are not able to watch the minimap have some clues this is happening or about to happen. But it could be a deal killer. That could be a reason why this unit down the road simply doesn't have the strength to make it, because, from bronze to gold, that's what you do. You bring in Shredders, you drop them, and you ruin his day. But we'll keep an eye on it going forward. Thanks for playing it, though, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, well, on that note, I really like what you guys are doing with the Nexus energy, because it seems like in some parts of the game, in certain matchups, and Chrono Boost isn't useless, but it does lose its utility. So on that note, whatever the thing, it's the psi cannons that you put on your building, obviously that's designed to prevent cheese. But what about using it as cheese? It seems like it might be really stupid pseudo cannon rushes.
Maybe not even might be. I watched Day 9 do that to Artosis last night, or was it to JP? I think it was to JP. It was hilarious. Well, no, for me, not so much for JP, I think. Yeah, so totally. Definitely a concern. We've tried it at different tech levels. We just recently made it gateway required. And it could be something that just dies in a fire, that just has too much of a problems. We've tried it with a limited range. When we had a very limited range, the Protoss were doing all kinds of weird things to keep their buildings in range, and their bases were getting all twisted and weird, and it was very awkward. When we had a very large range, like say a range of 20 on it, they didn't do that anymore. But at the same time, since the range was often off the screen, nobody even knew the thing had a range, which was also not a great new user experience. So the kind of thing, it makes the unit feel complicated and awkward again. So I'm not sure what the right answer on that is at the end of the day, whether there's a range, whether we need to bump up the tech a little bit, or we need to put a bullet into it and say, too bad, that's not going to work. But yeah, right now, if you get some, couple of buildings in your base, you could be in a little bit of trouble right now. Another option we've discussed is making it only cast maybe only on gateways or only on the Nexus or something along those lines. So it's really not something that's easy to drop in the enemy base. But it's totally fair feedback, and we'll definitely keep a watch on it going forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for playing.
Hi, guys. You mentioned how one of the Thor's weaknesses was Mutalisk's ability to just magic box against them, negating the splash damage. So why is that any different versus the Tempest now?
Oh, I think the Tempest has a much larger splash radius, first of all. And you will hopefully, because they're air units and they're coming in a late stage of the game, you can have multiple of them. When the Thor comes out, you really need, you're in trouble right now, and you might have one, maybe two. That won't be the case with the Tempest. The Tempest is designed to deal with that 30 to 40 to 50 Mutalisk case. So it'll be a very different scenario when she comes into play. Did you want to add to that?
Another huge difference of between the two units is that the Thor only really counters Mutalisks, but the Tempest actually counters every air unit in the game, as long as they're grouped up. So even if the other players building Corruptors or other units, they're still really good. So you won't really build one or two of these guys when you build them. I think you would just naturally build more of them because they're more powerful at just wiping out all your overlords or whatever if you win the air-to-air battle.
Well, as with the Thor, if you build too many, you're setting yourself up some other kind of counter, right? That's just going to wreck your day.
Thanks.
We have time for several more questions.
Hi. In the WoW, we really quickly saw a change to AoE to make it the total cap on damage. Will we ever see that in StarCraft? More importantly, with the EMP, just keep the range itself the same, but just have it only be able to take 500 energy total.
I'm not a big fan of that solution for StarCraft. I like what it's trying to accomplish. My concern would be that it would feel very, very random when you do it, what you actually get for it. For example, I EMP a bunch of Zealots and an Immortal. I have something I want to have happen there. I want that Immortal to take a bunch of shield loss. But if it caps at 500 damage and all the Zealots take the hits instead, and I'm sitting there like, why didn't she hit the Immortal? That's what I wanted, right? And so I feel like it's just a little too random for us to really be effective that way. I think ultimately nerfs to the ability, changes to the radius, changes to the range, changes how much damage it does. These are all very effective tools that we can use to attack that ability if we need to do so. That won't really create that kind of scenario where it feels kind of random. You don't really know what's happening.
Plus, what you're suggesting actually has a very similar effect to just nerfing the radius, but it doesn't have that problem. Our solution actually doesn't have that problem, the randomness problem that doesn't mention. So I think you'll actually get a similar effect that you're looking for with this change.
Thank you.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Hello again. I have a question regarding the happenstance to what was going to be the Twilight Archon, and now we find ourselves wasting a very valuable High Templar and a more valuable Dark Templar, in my opinion, to get pretty much the same thing. And I think by adding these two units together, which are strong, you would think you would get some sort of a different look to the Archon instead of this uniform blandness that, you get lost by doing it. You might as well just choose two High Templar instead of wasting the Dark Templar.
No, I understand. So if we have ideas for a new Archon, we'll definitely do it. We don't want just another mover and shooter Archon. We've got that guy, right? So if we come along with a new spellcaster or new abilities that would make sense on a kind of a big, tough ground guy, we'll definitely take consider it. And I'll take your feedback on this that, hey, I'd like my Twilight or Dark Archon back. Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for the change to EMP. And I wanted to ask about just AoE in general. It feels like mid-late game, because your units clump up so well in SA2, that so much of the strategy revolves around your ability to land and field those good AoEs. And are you happy with that? Do you think AoE is just too good?
Well, I can say one thing, and maybe you can follow up, David. It is one of the biggest challenges we've had ultimately when comparing Brood War to StarCraft 2. We've nerfed things like Psystorm again and again and again in a desperate attempt to deal with this issue, even as the community is like, why are you nerfing Psystorm? And this is the reason why we're doing it. Okay, you guys don't usually talk like that. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge for us, and it's something we'll continue to look at going forward. It does feel pretty good to watch it on esports, and it can be fun to play, but I hear what you're saying, that maybe it's a little across the line. Did you want to add to that?
I mean, we were getting this feedback a lot, especially towards the beginning when we first released the game. But these days, looking at tournaments, I really don't find game lengths to be too short or anything. I think faster games are pretty good, around 10 to 15 minutes. Longer games, I've seen like 40-minute, 50-minute games too. So in terms of that, I don't think units are dying too fast to splash, and what we have is not too bad.
Well, I'm just going to dogpile here. Another sort of, from my level of play, right, I'm sort of playing at the low diamond level of play. What you're saying is absolutely true, right? Like, I don't have the ability to easily split my units except on my very best day. Like, if I'm really rocking it and it's a Saturday morning and I'm all fresh, right, then I can split my units effectively. So it's sort of a challenge for us because the pros are able to split their units effectively, and it looks awesome when they do it, and it really puts a lot of skill into the game. But at my level of play, those Psystorms or those fungal growths are pretty critical to the game. So yeah, and you're in the same spot, I guess. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge for us, and it's definitely something I think we'll keep watching going forward.
Okay, thanks, guys.
That is all the time that we have for today. Please give our panelists a round.